Hello, love. I'm Heather Seipel, intuitive psyche specialist, energy body specialist, and sacred union coach. Today's video is about feminine energy versus the feminine operating system. And I even go a little bit more detailed than that. I say the sacred feminine operating system. There's a lot that really can be delved into here, but it's been interesting to me that over the last matter of years there's been a lot of conversation about feminine energy, like feminine energy in general. There's been feminine energy marketing and feminine energy relaxation and all of these ways to really delve into your feminine energy and understand it. I'm not going to be talking about any of that today. The operating system actually works very differently. So whenever I am working with a client and I'm analyzing what exactly is happening in their system and how to get to the best resolution, I go directly to the operating system. I'm not actually as concerned what is happening with their energy, which is like the expression thereof. Certainly the patterns and the process or energy also. But when you get down into the operating system, it begins to look a little bit differently and you work it differently. So then it stands to say that you have quite different results that come forward. And so when I delve into the operating system, I noticed a lot of difference coming up in concepts that people, oftenly spoke about. So here in this video today, you very well may hear some things that go against the prevailing thought when it comes to feminine energy, but just know that I'm kind of in a way talking about something a little different. So the beginning parts of this conversation start with the masculine energy body operates via an electric current, right? And then the feminine energy body operates via a magnetic energy current. And this is interesting because people think about, magnetic as receiving. And that's fine. There's no problem with thinking in those terms, but I also want you to begin to think in the terms of like basic actual energetics where there's no thoughts, there's no concepts really related to it, there's no intentions, it's just a process. We have been trained on the electrical energy system. And so we don't actually really unravel and operate fully in the magnetic energetic system, even though we are females, right? You would think like, okay, well, we were born this way, we can just do this. But there's been a lot of energetic imprint, if you will. It's sort of like when you're in a space and maybe the energy is wild and chaotic and you can just feel that active in your system, and that's maybe just for a moment, a few hours, and then you leave there and you're like, oh, whew. But what if you were born and raised into an energetic and you wouldn't know the difference, right? So we were really raised and developed in a space where there was just so much electric energy that we developed these processes, right? So a lot of people will say the masculine energy is the mind and action and a lot of structure and intention, and the feminine is like wide open and yin, and I kind of go into these like descriptions of the feminine energy, like relaxed and open for creativity and inspiration and receiving. And people try from the electrical patterning that we have had to do all of these feminine energy expressions. And that's why it feels like a gear shift or why it's hard, because we're not actually adjusting the operating system underneath that, which then operates these types of energies naturally. But it's even more interesting that it's not just the feminine quality energies that begin to operate naturally. When a female energy body or a feminine polarity system is designed, certainly we have the capacity for some electrical current, right? So that, in other words, is we all have masculine energy, we all have feminine energy, certainly. But when we are a particular body, we have energetics that are programmed into, like, say, for example, the uterus, which is a seat of creation, quite literally, and also in all the ways. So we have this polarity because it runs in with our hormonal system and the whole operating system, right? So when we're operating as though like our body's designed to be a magnetic operating system, but we've only been trained in all of life in the electric. So we're magnetic, we've been trained on the electric. And the thing about it is that wires sort of get crossed. It's really challenging to go from being in an electric position, like our whole consciousness, our awareness, the way that we operate and default is electric over and over and over and over again. And anytime, I remember years ago, I was trying to be in my feminine, right? And I look back in hindsight and I was like, oh my, wow, that took a lot of effort, right? It took a lot of effort to go from that electrical current over into trying to be in the magnetic current, even though you think we're just designed this way. It's really quite a different process altogether. It's just a different system. And one of the things about it is that when you're operating in a magnetic operating system, it burns so much less energy. And the best analogy I can think for this is not exactly the perfect fitting match of an analogy, but it kind of gives you an idea of what I mean. So you remember back in the day, they had those halogen bulbs, and I was one of those people that went to the store and bought a whole bunch of halogen bulbs before the LEDs kind of came in full force and effect. Now you can't find a halogen bulb anywhere, but anyways, so, but the halogen bulbs burned really hot. If, one burned out and you went to change it right away, you would burn your fingers, right? It put out a lot of energy. Now you can change an LED bulb with it being on and having been on for an hour. You can just unscrew it. It's not burning as much energy, but guess what it is doing? It's still lighting the house, right? It's still causing the exact same effect. If you walked into someone's house and you never looked at the light bulb, would you know if it was a halogen or if it was an LED? No, it's still lighting up the room just fine. I mean, there may be market differences. You might be able to see like a shade difference, but they have those other LED with the coverings that make it look a little more halogen-y. But anyways, the point is it does the same thing. Whereas when we think of masculine energy, we're like action, doing, and then the feminine is like relaxing, receptive, receiving. So this is two totally different things. That's doing two totally different things. When you're operating from the center of your being as your correct polarity, you're doing whatever you're doing in life, you're just doing it by burning less energy. It's a very strange thing to me because, like, for example, I had one of my dear friends, level 3 mastery energy practitioner, tell me, yeah, but I can't be in my feminine right now because I have so much to do. And I was like, I'm confused. What do you mean? And she was like, but I can't be like relaxed and receptive. And I was like, yeah, but that's not being in your feminine operating. So, like, you can do all of you every day, all the time, no matter what you're doing. You can either be in the electrical operating system or you can be in the magnetic one. You just burn far less energy in the magnetic one. Problem is with this is that the reason why over the last matter of years, we've all been trying to gear shift from one to the other. I mean, one of the main reasons is our central nervous systems got fried, living in this electrical world when we're designed to be magnetic. No one ever trained us on how to be magnetic. But the main reason that it feels like such a gear shift is because we're not hitting at the operating system level, right? We can't even access the operating system level. For most individuals, it's frozen from head to toe. We're just, that feminine part of our system is very, very frozen. Why? Is because we've had so much unconscious misogyny that we have absorbed into, guess what? Female bodies. That's where the vast majority of misogyny on this planet is housed. You would think it would be in the minds of the males, but it's actually not. It's housed mainly in the bodies of the females. Well, that stuff is super heavy. It's super like loading down the system. So this isn't exactly the way that we really want to think about things. We're like, oh crap, now what? Well, sure, right? But now what is always my question. Like, now what is the next step? What is the next available process? I'm always looking for something that is more effective, quicker functioning, and that really, really works on a pervasive level. I did not find that until, at least with this particular process, until I started doing level 4 energy work, because it gets down underneath all of the energy work that we're familiar with interfacing with and operating with when we're in that level 3 training. When we're doing that type of process, our energy body is still very frozen. And how many years did we do so many sessions? I mean, session after session after session, and kind of like repeat and go in a circle, and then not see that tangible world shift, not suddenly see our central nervous systems decompress and discharge and all of the triggers just gone, right? Like, I mean, what? Like, what magic is this that you speak of, Heather? Yeah, no, I know I finally got the energy work that I had been wanting for so long, because I don't want a freaked out central nervous system. I don't want a fried and, fritzy central nervous system. I got one of the absolute best comments I've ever gotten in my life. Comments is like what do you call that? Flattery, like, it was just like the sweetest thing. One of the best compliments I've ever gotten in my life. One of my friends that I was working in conjunction with on a regular basis, probably for a couple years straight, there was an issue that arose, and he and I, would touch base anytime there was anything that needed to be resolved or handled, or we needed to get on the same page or whatever, And he says to me one day, he was like, okay, what's your take on this? And so I told him my take on that situation. And he said, okay, I trust you. I trust your nervous system. And I was like, wow. I mean, he does, he's an energy person too. But he was like, I trust your central nervous system. And I was like, I've been working hard on my central nervous system. I did that, like, I didn't just come out this way, I mean, I really did a hell of a lot of work. And he saw that, and I was so pleased. I was like, wow, I'm rarely like flattered. I'm not the one, the type of person that encourages lots of compliments in my direction. I don't really need words of affirmation all that much, but a really genuine high level compliment, it was just kind of cool, I have to say. And then I realized, wait, this actually was far more than a compliment to me. This was him articulating, as a male individual in this world with females who have fried central nervous systems, that he felt safe. Not just that he trusted my decision on a particular matter, but that he felt safe to come to me to talk about it, to get clear, discuss the whole things. I mean, this is a pretty technical matter. We did a lot of technical things, right? But I was operating in my feminine while being in my mind, doing all the action, taking the structure, being a leader. Like, that's not what is commonly referred to as being in your feminine. But then you have a lot of people that are saying, okay, well, like, how do we do business and still be in our feminine? Well, anytime you're in a decompressed state where your energy body has been defrosted and gotten a lot of that misogyny programs out of there, I literally pulled yet another misogyny program out of my system this past week in session, and I was like, look at that shit. Like, I couldn't even believe, like, never once in my whole life, never a day in my whole life would I have had a conscious thought of that crap program that was running in my system. Like, every single day of my life, that was operational in my energy body and therefore impacting my life. And I say pull it out, but that's not how we work it in level 4 energy work. We actually work with it and we resolve it. But that was a very external and generational program that got placed in my system from like all of this messaging, but also for soaking in a female's energy body for 9 months and then being born, right? So every male and every female on this planet has soaked in a female's energy body that had all of this junk programming in there, right? So as a male individual is being born and presented into this world, they were soaking in quantum physics that were loaded with a whole boatload of misogyny. We don't exactly know how to necessarily handle this as a society. It's very new. If you look at the amount of generations, or let's just say decades, how many decades have women really been like free to like kind of do whatever they chose, right? I mean, in the 70s, I heard a lot of people talking about how they had a lot of guilt or shame about their choices, and so they may have made different choices based on that. Some of them went forward anyways. And that kind of became a little bit less the case in the 80s. And I mean, whenever I was, a teenager in the 90s, and, I didn't really think twice about it. That really wasn't a conversation that was being had anymore. That whole women have to stay home and blah, 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 blah crap, this kind of like structural limitations, that was not there. It was like, you need to get a job. You need to do what you need to do to handle up for yourself, And so even though the prevailing mindset of what people chose and thought and said is hyper irrelevant to what the hell is landed in your energy body. It has no relevant bearing. Never a day in my life did I ever think the thought or believe what the hell I recovered or discovered in my system this past week. Never once was that a thing, right? It wasn't even something that was showing up in my life. It has not shown up in my life in years, if not decades. I'm going through my system and I'm like, okay, what's up with this thing? This completely unrelated thing, and lo and behold, some big old misogyny piece comes out, and I'm like, okay, great. Glad to see it, because I know what to do with that. I will work that and resolve it. And we can get to that part where we situate our system, where we have it nice and defrosted. We've got a bunch of junk programming thrown out. And the fascinating thing about junk programming, I'm going to use ORM for an example. This is a strange example, but let's just go with it. Okay. So say, for example, a junk programming lands when you're 9 years old. Okay, this is not how an arm grows, but let's just say, for example, because it's the best I've got right now. Let's just say your arm has grown to this length by the time you're 9 years old, and it'll grow this whole length by the time you're 22 or 42 or whatever, right? So you, at 9 years old, something happens, you get some massive junk programming bias, maybe some kind of trauma, or you interface with some individuals and their quantum physics impact you. And you're like, oh yes, and it correlates with your system. Now a junk program meshes and form fits to your own essence programs. We have natural programs running all over our system. Say this happened, you're 9 years old, boom, a junk program happens there. Well, guess what? At that part of your system where that junk program is smacked, your system never, ever, ever, ever develops any further. Fascinating thing I realized, because I surely did not know this at all of my level 3 mastery energy body in moving around, healing things, serious, hella deep energy work, did not know that your literal energy body is stymied in growth when a junk program gets smacked up on it. Well, I never even knew anything about junk programs, first of all, because, well, we all had frozen energy bodies. Nobody was teaching about that stuff. So I go and defrost out parts of my own energy body. I find these junk programs that are under it, and lo and behold, parts of my system start growing out. And I'm not even joking about this. Competence, actual knowledge base, and being able to operate functionally in a new space of my system suddenly like came forward. It's the weirdest feeling, integrating that into your system. After it takes about a week before you stop feeling it and you feel regular again. But when it first happens, you feel so much larger, like so much more of yourself. Like this foundation of your system grows wider. You don't feel as wobbly. It feels really, really structurally sound. I mean, it's a great feeling, you know? I mean, I enjoy it quite a lot because I'm like, whew, I just built out part of my system. It's fully noticeable every single time I do it, and I have a greater level of competence in that area that I did that session on, right? Whatever my intention or whatever theme it was. And then there's so much more than just what I was thinking about the session and going in for on that. It built out the whole area of the psyche that even remotely deals with that. So then this is what's called having space for things to land, as in manifest in your life. That new area of your energy body can connect with different types of things in the external world and create very, very tangible experiences for you and in your life. It's fascinating. I've seen this happen over and over and over again for, you know, a matter of years now. And it's the most exciting thing to me, but it's also a bit strange. You know, as a practitioner, I have a client that comes to me, right? They're nowhere near a level 3 energy mastery person. And they're like, well, what's going on in my system? And I'm sitting there like, okay, how the hell do I tell them? You just simply don't have a part of your psyche built out. After many years of energy training, you can definitely have that experience. You can build out, you could become more of a person, more of you. That's just very rude. So I cannot say that. That's just not acceptable, you know, because hello. But, you know, I mean, I frame it a bit differently, but sometimes I have a bit difficulty of saying like, okay, well, you're dealing with a hell of a lot of frozen energy here. You've got emotions that are just large, very, very large, and pew, pew. Now, it's not to say that the feminine, even the sacred feminine, doesn't have like serious and intense emotions sometimes. This deep, deep anger, rage, or whatever I call that comes from the sacred feminine, I call it holy hot rage. Like, it is very real, and it's like a smack. Like, I felt it before. I felt it, like it flushed hot through my body. I articulated it, and some things like fell into place, and it worked out like quite nicely. However, so that's what I call a pure energy. When it pulses through your system and it's gone, you can never feel it again. I cannot feel the, shall we say, anger or rage that came through my system. I couldn't feel it 5 minutes later. It was passed through my system. The difference when people say, they talk about feminine energy and they talk about expressing your emotions, it is healthy when you can allow an emotion to go through your system and express, and it's gone. You never feel it again. That's done. That's called a pure emotion. Guess what most people have? Let's like zoom out and think about all the males in this world that if they heard the phrase female emotions, what would they feel in their bodies? What would they think in their minds? It's like strikes terror in the heart of like most male individuals. or they go on hyper defense, right? I mean, this is not a healthy thing that is happening with most females who have a lot of pain and heavy suffering on their system. This is frozen energy. If you can feel that emotion again and again and again, 5 years later, the same thing, you're feeling again, you're repeating the same things about the situation, you're irritated, you're triggered again. This is the looping. This is the PTSD loop that they talk about. This is what is called trauma. It is frozen in your energy body, and it's got all those emotions stuck in there with them. And I have done all the different, trauma release processes that they have, the EMDR, the EFT, the blah, 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 and the yada yadas. Yes, I've done all of those. The one thing that did really work really well was the sound therapy table. And I actually have a sound therapy table. I don't see too many clients anymore these days, but I would. Maybe I'll start promoting that again. But anyways, it's, the sound therapy table can kind of get that initial layer off. But even with a sound therapy table, those things vibrate hard, it reverberates. Like sometimes the table is like wobbling on the floor, it's like a really strong reverberation, and it flushes that sound into the cells of the body. It can get a little movement, and people can have results. I mean, the first time I got off of a sound therapy table, I was in a bad off state of being in life. I had been searching for, at that point I was going through counseling. I hadn't even heard about energy work. I didn't know anything about energy work. I was so wound tight. My system had been wound tight for over a year. I was constantly clenching my jaw 24/7. My hair was falling out, adrenal glands flushing, thyroids, going wonky. I get on that sound therapy table. Oh my God, it felt like every drop of stress or tension had literally come out of my body and it was gone. I mean, of course, it built back up over the course of the week, and I ended up going 2 times a week for a month, and then once a week for the next month, and then every other week for the following month. I went for a while to get my system calibrated back. So I do know that works. EFT never did that for me. EMDR never did that for me. I can definitely say there are some things that work better. And I mean, it really actually depends on how well wound tight you are, right? But nothing I've ever even heard of in this whole world compares to defrosting that crap off of your energy body. I say that, man, we're so programmed to go back to level 1 energy verbiage, right? It's not off of your body. It's your own energy that got frozen. When you defrost that, you get your own energy back. You get more vitality, more stamina, your emotions lift up, you have more peace, and that trigger doesn't activate in your system anymore. It's downright amazing. I cannot speak highly enough about level 4 energy work. It's downright amazing. But when I speak about the feminine in general, from me going forward, anytime that you hear the word feminine from me, I'm talking about the operating system. I'm not really talking about the energy expression, because the operating system is going to be how you think about it, how you frame it, what choices you make, right? The electrical is going to make drastically different process decisions. They're going to understand concepts differently. The magnetic, you literally begin to reframe your thought process. It's brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. And activating that system just to come back online, right, is the terrible analogy I used of the arm, right? It's like when you have another part of your system. I mean, even if you get this much more access to your system that you didn't have before, that's a hell of a lot more process. Your psyche literally is located in different parts of the body and can operate more functionally. So sometimes we can actually put our finger on the part of our system that's not fully filled out. Like, for example, I can't even pick my leg up that high, but somewhere right here on my leg, I have a spot. It's so strange. I can follow the muscle group, and then there's this one spot that's about the size of a fingertip, and it just pushes in. It's void or something, like there's energy missing there. I'm like, now I know how to resolve that. So I've been working, I'm like, I need to get there to that aspect of my system and build out that space, because it's really, really physically showing up on my leg right now. So it's funny, but man, whenever I found that the first time, I was like, what the actual hell is this? It was the funniest little, it just felt like a sinkhole of sorts. Like it's just, it doesn't go in super far, but it's squish. And I'm like, what the hell? Don't get me wrong. In this body, there's a lot of strange and peculiar things because of musculoskeletal issues. But I'll actually do a video on my my health journey. It is a fascinating story of the things that I have learned and the progress that I've made over 30 years of doctors and practitioners, and I finally did it. So I definitely want to tell you about that, because the journey to finding that experience was what was most what was most notable about that whole process. But anyway, so a quick recap. So feminine energy, different than feminine operating system. Operating system is the process by which you do things, right? Just think of the two different operating systems, Mac and PC, right? They just operate differently. And well, nowadays, you see, that's not the best analogy. We all know that they don't do the same. They do something different. But nowadays, you can kind of run the same apps on both. You can run the same, you can download the same software. It'll be for Mac or for PC. We know it's a different operating system, but we as customers can do the same things on both. See, it didn't used to be like that. For those of y'all who remember back in the 80s, oh yeah, no. PCs and Macs never could do the same thing. If you wanted to play this game, you had to have the computer system that it would go with. There was just no softwares were ever similar. They didn't do the same things. They didn't have the same features. So for those of us who remember, this whole operating system thing that I'm talking about the electrical current and the magnetic current, it was like the 80s Apple and PC, it was a vastly different process. But, also it's really important to note that when you're a magnetic polarity, but you've been trained to operate via an electrical process, it's not your natural way. It's not even what's right for your system. It's not that you cannot run electrical energy. Clearly, we're all alive doing it every day. But the more and more I'm able to access my magnetic operating system, the more decompressed. And then I get a compliment somebody trusts my central nervous system. How fucking cool is that? And then I've started thinking about things in different ways. I've started making decisions in different ways. It's been pointed out to me by people who think in the ways that I used to think. Wait, isn't it this? And whatever the topic is. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, I remember thinking that way before. Actually, I'm thinking this. And they're like, oh, I see. It's just a whole different way. It's a whole process, a whole different process. So the way that I express my feminine energy is however the hell I want to every single day, no matter what I'm doing or what I'm thinking. But my emotions don't get stuck in me, and it's not like that constant, painful emotion. I went through that. I lost so much weight grieving and going through all of that intense feminine wounding. I don't recommend that for anybody ever. That's bad for your whole hormonal and chemical system. That's not healthy, I highly recommend defrosting instead. Just relieve the suffering, and then you can make the decisions that you need to make on a lot more shall we say like with a lot more clarity and a lot more peace. And this might sound rude at this moment, but it's just coming to mind that I oftenly now say, like, I mean, and I say this mainly for my own self and my own process. The phrase is cut the crap. Like, no, all of that stuff, all that complicated energy work and difficulty and that's all frozen energy. Cut the crap. Like, I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. I definitely sure as hell don't want to operate it with it going forward in my life. You know, like, cut the crap. No. Like, it's like this maturity of like the mama in me saying, no, like, none of that crap. We're going to get clear and we're going to do what's healthy, you know? And so that's been my process as far as like dealing with anything feminine related is, well, number one, get the misogyny resolved. I mean, you know, how are we sitting here saying that we care about ourselves, but we're leaving all that misogyny crap and junk programming in our system, and it's limiting us, right? I mean, again, the arm analogy was not the best that I've ever had in my life, sorry. But it's very visual, I have to say, right? Like, if we've all got like partial functioning aspects of our system, where we don't have full, I use the word competence, but full access, full processing, the whole nine in that part of our system, but we're females, we can do what we want, you know, I am woman, you know, like just this like, but then it's sort of unconsciously visible to everyone that we have all of this limitation in our system. That gets me very sobered, you know. I don't really talk about anything when it comes to like females or feminine this or that, you know, except very quietly and seriously, like in a very serious tone of voice. If somebody's using some misogyny, I either walk away or just simply ignore it, because speaking to it out of the space of having active misogyny in my system, what the hell is that going to do for me or the other person? You know, have you ever tried to convince a female to love herself? You know, you're a wonderful person. You do all these great things. No, like, I love you, right? It's, you cannot shift how someone feels. That misogyny is real and embedded, right? These programs are not small time. They're very serious. They're very real. I mean, I know I kind of sometimes make light in my videos, but never when it comes to energy work. We take that stuff seriously around here. So anyways, I hope that gives you a little bit of an understanding. I know, again, I'm going against some prevailing thought. I hope that I have added a little bit to the conversation of what you were already aware of when it comes to feminine energy, and, you know, just kind of increase the conversation a little bit, because I really think that it's helpful. I think it's really, really helpful when we can ponder a little deeper, a little bit more, and get a little bit better, a little sharper, and a little more holistic when it comes to the way that we handle our health care. You know, this is our health, our energy body is our health care. How we respond and react to others, that's our health care. That has nothing to do with them. Oh, but they triggered me, that's irrelevant. The trigger is active because of the frozen energy in your energy body, right? That's your health care. And I mean, emotional intelligence has been, you know, coming along quite nicely. I'm very proud of TikTok for teaching our Gen Z generation a little bit about emotional intelligence. And I'm really, really pleased, honestly, with how much the Gen Zers have come along and learned about a lot of different things. And I really think that it's mainly because of TikTok. It's just fascinating. Maybe one of these days I'll have a TikTok channel. We shall see. My daughter told me a while ago, no, you are not allowed on TikTok. And I was like, I don't even want a TikTok channel. So maybe one of these days I will say, well, too bad. But until then, I'll be here on YouTube. So if you have any questions and want to, want me to explore something a little bit more in a video, feel free to post a comment on any of the videos. The comment doesn't even have to be, the question doesn't have to be specific to the topic of the video. If I select your question, then I will do a video on it. I might do a couple questions in the same video, but feel free to always come back and, you know, post some questions. And I definitely want to, you know, meet you where you are. And again, this channel is for level 3 mastery energy practitioners that know how to go inside their energy body, move around, navigate, and shift some energy, right? And we're going to go from that level to understanding the operating system and adjusting, and not really so much, you know, having to rework or move energy. We're not going to so much move it in level 4, but I'll explain a bit more here. So I thank you again for your presence on this channel. And if you would like to subscribe, I would be so pleased and honored and grateful, and send gratitude energy to you. And if you're interested at all in learning a little bit more about my level 4 energy training, it is called Relationship Mastery. Remembering that the relationship with ourselves is always the one to master first. And just like I said, anything that's happening inside of us as a reaction is our own health care. That's what we address first. But when it comes to romantic relationships, I freaking love talking about energetic relationships and the energy that moves between two people. And I'm really quite wired for helping people navigate and get on the same page with their energy waves in relationship, because a lot of people end up having energy waves going in different directions in relationships, and it causes a lot of friction. But if you think about what I've already explained in this video, if we can resolve the healthcare in our own energy body, think about how much you can clean up a relationship's energy, right? So anyways, I'm pleased to be here, and thank you again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye for now.